Fantastic. Yeah, good to meet you, mate.
Nice to meet you as well.
This movie is topping my favorite horror films of the year. It's great. Love it.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Where did you see it?
I saw it in a screening ahead of this, so in a private cinema. Um,
Was there a crowd?
I
What was
had
the how many
I
people?
had a good handful of people, and like we were reacting
Okay.
to it. I had my podcast co-host next to me, and we live for this shit, man. Like, so we were
Oh,
completely in our
amazing.
element. Yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely.
Like it when it premiered at South by. Oh, anyway, we'll get into the conversation. I'll hold it for the conversation.
No worries. Well, I want to ask. I'm glad you've got that poster behind you because I wanted to know when Tucker and Dale versus Evil came out. Were you, and when it became a cult hit, were you like hit with a barrage of horror offers from people?
Um, Not really. I mean, the way Tucker and Dale became a cult hit was such a slow, steady trickle.
Yeah.
It first it hit a few film festivals that were onto it, and we went to Sundance and just tore Sundance down. And we went to South by and won the audience award at South by.
Hmm.
But then it kind of languished a bit, and a sale wasn't made by my producer, and then like it took basically a year for it to get distribution. And when it finally did get distribution, it didn't have much advertising.
Yeah.
And so like the world at large had never really heard of it. But there was this small like group of fanatics that already loved it.
Yeah.
But the studio system was not onto it, right? Like the studio system, the people hiring people in Hollywood had no idea about Tucker and Dale or who I was. And they would be like,
Man.
"What?" And it took years for all of a sudden it got to Netflix. And all of a sudden a couple years later, I found like people calling. Like all of a sudden, I sold my movie Little Evil to Universal,
Yeah.
which was its own headache because then Universal wanted to beautify my script and change everything, you know. Um, but eventually, yes, there were some horror films reaching out to me, but it's such a specific tone, and I don't think people knew whether I was like a comedy guy or a horror guy.
Yeah.
And so I've never found it super easy to like set up my own films. I hope it'll get easier because I'd like to make more films, but it's always been a bit of a grind, to be honest.
Man, well, I hope you get to make more films too. So, how far into development was Clown in the Cornfield when you came on board?
Um, so there was a book and there was a first draft of a script
Hmm.
by Carter Blanchard that really had some awesome action moments
Yeah.
and had the central elements of it there. And I spoke to the producers and talked about me doing a rewrite and coming on board and how Clown in a Cornfield I thought should balance this really gruesome actiony horror with light levity and comedy, and that how I would try to tackle that. And I think they were intrigued by the idea. I know Marty Bowen is a guy who likes genre mashups a bit and
Yeah.
some tone shifts within films. So he trusted it to me, and then I was kind of blessed enough to be able to really do my own thing in production and cast the people I wanted to cast and tell the movie the way I wanted to tell it. So
That's
it was pretty
fantastic.
cool.
That is fantastic. So when you picked up the book and read it for the first time, was there anything in there that immediately caught your attention, or even perhaps posed an exciting challenge for you that you thought that's going to be difficult to adapt?
Well, exciting and challenging kind of go together, right? Yes, 100%. I mean, there's the main twist of the movie, the main plot twist
Yeah.
is also a plot twist of the book.
Yeah.
And once I got to that moment, which if you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about, but I can't tell you exactly
Uh-huh.
what it is. But there's a moment where the movie really shifts tone, it shifts pacing. Um, and I thought, let's go take a big swing at this and lean into the sort of tropey horror pacing, really establish the characters. Um, Maybe it's not as heightened humor also in the first half, but I take my time with the characters and then make this pretty big tonal shift for the second half of the movie and where everything goes kind of haywire.
Hmm.
And and that was the challenge, right? Like, are people going to be on the ride for this shifting tone? Are they going to be pissed that it's changed? Are they going to feel like it's too slow in the beginning? Um, so you kind of don't fully know how it plays out until it's in theaters. And I mean, from what I've seen so far, it seems like people are on the ride, but you tell me.
100%. I definitely think. I think when it comes to horror movies, particularly slasher movies, fans of the genre, they obviously they want what all the fun expected stuff. They want all the tropes, but I think they want
Yeah.
the unexpected. Like they want something to shock them because they've seen it so many times. And I think you've nailed both briefs when it comes to that. Do you have the audience in mind when you are making the movie, like, or are you just focused on getting the adaptation right? What sort of what's the
Oh,
stronger drive?
it's I kind of feel like the audience is another part of the plot
Yeah.
in a way because I'm actually kind of plotting what I think the audience will think is happening next. And so I'm trying to play with a lot of people's emotions. And that's a lot of what filmmaking is, right? You're just trying to sort of manipulate people's emotions through the story you're telling. And a lot of my manipulation, if you want to say that, is like kind of leading to a place where they feel very sure of where the film's going to go and then not giving them that and
Mhm.
then kind of reversing those things and giving them something totally different.
Absolutely. Given that I have a short amount of time with you, I'm going to pivot a question here, just to something
Yeah.
completely different, more of a from a just an interest point of view. You as a filmmaker, I'm wondering, are there ever moments where you've planned a scene, you've set it up, you've rehearsed it, and the second that you start rolling and you see it through the lens, you feel like it's just not right? I'm wondering what happens in those circumstances. What do you do?
Well, 100%. So much of directing is, I think, about just being real with yourself and being honest and gut checking everything.
Hmm.
And that's sort of why I have a hard time accepting that the movie, I don't know whether the movie's going to do well or not. I'm very suspicious as a person of something being off or something not being right. And so in the moment, that's your one chance to fix it.
Yeah.
Um, there was a scene there were many times. Yeah, I would wake up 2 hours before going to, well, I'd wake up a few hours before going to set. We were working mostly nights, and I would have 3 hours before going to shoot, and I'd be like, I need to rewrite this.
Oh my god.
And I would rewrite. There's moments I could just specifically, I'm just so happy that I revised some things because it would have really brought the plot down, or people wouldn't have. There were jokes that I would add, and then even in the blocking rehearsal, sometimes I find something that's just not working, or it's slowing down things, or kind of there's just some element that isn't right, and I would run back to the cast as they're getting ready before we start to shoot and say, we need to rewrite this thing. We need to figure out something else to do here. Specifically, I'll just tell you one thing. When everybody was crawling into the pipe to get out of the shed that they were hiding in, um, there was this like tender moment with Cole and Quinn where he's like, if you're scared, hold my hand and I'll be there for you, and we'll make it through this. And as I watched the rehearsal, I thought, wait a minute, like Quinn is tougher than Cole. Like Quinn's gonna be on her way. Like she has to be the hero. So we quickly revised. So he's just, they're just getting out of there, and she says like, hurry up. And he says what he needs to say. It's also a plot twist. But then they dive in and get out of there. So yeah, those are really important moments on set.
Yeah, for sure. So and when you're making this film, are you tapping into like your knowledge of horror films? And if so, are there any references you're pulling from? Like, are there any films that are leading you in a certain direction that you sort of rely on for a bit of reassurance and
Yeah.
direction?
Well, I mean, 100%. I mean, I grew up, I really wanted this to be like an 80s sort of throwback slasher movie that felt gritty and very special effects heavy and
Yep.
not visual effects heavy. And so they're all those sort of masked killer classics,
Hmm.
slasher films. Halloween, Friday the 13th, Leatherface, of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is huge in my mind.
100%.
Um, but then also really looking at Scream and the meta elements there and thinking of this as somewhat meta in a more modern way.
Hmm.
Um, and then looking at the master to me is still like the one that I went back and I just watched because this is kind of a Predator movie was Jaws,
Yeah.
and I have a little homage to Jaws in the beginning. Um, because to me the corn is also kind of like the ocean,
Yeah. Yep.
can't really see through it. And when you're above it, you see this long line, but you don't know what lives within it. So I was playing with like a little bit of elements of like the water line above the cornfield and
Yeah,
breaking above that.
dude, that stuff is what will absolutely get the horror fans in, and we lap that up. That's fucking awesome. Two more questions before I let you run. There's 3 books in the series. Do you plan on adapting them all?
Yes, and if we get to, I would say that
Yeah,
because it's weird to be an artist who makes movies because you kind of want to do your art all the time, but
yeah.
you need some money. You need a decent amount of money. We didn't think we had enough for this ever, but that's the way it goes. And if we get the money to do it, I know Adam Caesar loves this version of Clown in the Cornfield, and we've talked a lot about what the sequel will be. And even possibly like inserting a sequel into his series of books that kind of fits between book one and book two,
Uh huh.
like what happens with Quinn entirely at college,
Yep.
um, and then go to Kettle Springs for three. But we'll see what happens with this movie.
Cool. I hope it does happen because like there's nothing better than a really good, strong horror franchise. It's just the best. Final question for you. I ask this to almost everybody I chat to, but is there a movie from your youth that really set you on a course to become a filmmaker? One that just lit that spark?
For me, there's a bunch. There's a bunch. I think that I had a Demented spark kind of lit early on in my life when I watched things way too young, like The Exorcist, and thought like how can anybody even make this film? Like
Yep.
I thought about it for years. Like I would see Reagan, flipping out on the bed and thinking like that was just so gutsy. And then watching The Shining too young, and then revering and watching over and over and over in college. Like every night we'd come home from the bars in college and watch Evil Dead 2.
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, so it's a combination of those with my love of like the Steven Spielberg sort of action films and the James Cameron action films. I was just a huge fan of like of T2 and a huge fan of everything Steven Spielberg did, especially in the 80s and 90s. And so I have like a kind of an actiony sort of love of horror. It's like action with a bit of humor in it mixed up.
Haha.
Bill
Good.
Murray as well. Bill Murray, Groundhog Day. Uh,
What about Bob?
yes.
Yes.
What about Bob? And you know what? An unknown and unappreciated. I got to drop this because one of my favorite Bill Murray movies is this unappreciated one called The Razor's Edge,
Oh, yeah,
which is
absolutely. Yeah.
just an amazing. I love watching comedians play like grounded, real roles, and his character in The Razor's Edge is like, it's just profoundly. It's a profound movie,
Uh-huh.
and
Couldn't
he
agree
brings
more.
light and comedy to it as well. So anyway,
Fantastic. Man, thank you so much for making time. Like, truly sincere when I say this is a really cool slasher movie. Like, loved it.
okay. Well, thank you so much, Glenn.